Eagles are standing at the top of that mountain right now. They're the number one seed in the NFC, according to the Vegas odds, to win the NFC. And they're like number 3 or 4 in the entire NFL for the Super Bowl odds. It's the Football Playbook TFB with RIC here at the Jersey Shore, broadcasting around the universe on this Tuesday, October 4th. I think it's our 26th episode in the books here on the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. So make sure you click subscribe, get all of our show notifications, smash that like button, get it in. Tell a friend that it's them again. Great job out of Eddie Kratz, Cafe Kratz, waking up with us early. He's off to the Eagles press conferences, more of today. Ric Serritella had one yesterday, which, as far as I know, it was the longest one to date. He met with the media for over 20 minutes. And I'm going to get into that presser. Hey, I love getting interactive with it, guys. If you have questions, I got answers. I got a lot of opinions, too. Richard Rosania, welcome to the show, man. Buckle up. You came with your chin strap, your shoulder pads, your knee pad. You're all buckled up, ready for the show, Richard. I love it. Do I think Ertz is going to have a better game than Goedert? It depends on what you define as better. Statistically speaking, possibly, because DeAndre Hopkins is out. They got a makeshift wide receiver corps. I mean, guys like Greg Dortch, who was sitting on the streets a couple weeks ago, is like their wide receiver number 2. So statistically speaking, I think Ertz could have a better day. But to me, whoever puts up a W in the left-handed column, that's who has the better day, regardless of the stat line. And Goedert, had a big drop this past week, but he did a lot of other good things, little things well, and the blocking, the yards after catch. And I think at the end of the day, the Eagles are going to win this game. So I think Goedert will be the one toasting the champagne. But yeah, Ertz probably will have more catches and yards, but Eagles are going to leave out of there with a W. I'll get you my score prediction later on in the week. One thing I will say, the NFL this past week, including last night's game now, 15 out of 16 games were within 1 point. At some point in the fourth quarter, 15 of the 16 games were within 1 point. And I was on my friend Gabriel Morency's show, The Sports Rage, on Sirius XM channel 159. I do that every overnight, Monday into Tuesday. We talked about it. The lines and the point spreads, if you look each week, almost every game is within a field goal. That's how close. That's how much parity is in the NFL. And the Eagles, I can't remember a season where week 4, 3 or 4 weeks into the season, every team had at least one loss. There was no undefeated teams. Eagles are standing at the top of that mountain right now. They're the number 1 seed in the NFC, according to the Vegas odds, to win the NFC. And they're like number 3 or 4 in the entire NFL for the Super Bowl odds. So, if you didn't get on the bandwagon early, if you didn't listen to the Football Playbook back in August when we were predicting an Eagles Super Bowl, well, now you've got to ante up and pay a little bit extra. The win total from 9.5 to 12.5. Go find me 3 losses on this schedule. Arizona could be a trap game. Are they looking ahead to Dallas next week? Possibly. Cross country. This game has me a little bit concerned. I think this game, I'm a little bit more concerned than that cross country travel. Eagles don't have a great history of playing well in the desert. I think this is the ultimate trap game. Other than that, Dallas is a big test next week. Dak will be back. And then you've got the, I think, Sunday Night Football, what is it, November 27th against the Green Bay Packers. The Eagles' black helmets are going to make their debut November 27th against the Pack. I'll tell you what, I keep watching this Rams team on primetime. They look like a serious Super Bowl hangover. And I'll get more into that Monday Night Football game later on. But Tampa Bay didn't exactly look like a contender against Green Bay. I'm starting to think, I thought the NFC ran through Tampa. Starting to think it might run through Green Bay. Hey, it might run through Philly. but I think they're going to have to go through the pack to get back to Arizona. Hey, this is a Super Bowl preparation week because the Super Bowl is held in Arizona this year. So get used to the digs, Philadelphia, because you might be returning come February. Ric Serritella here on the Football Playbook. We've got Darren Urban coming up at the end of the show, by the way. Nick Sirianni's press conference yesterday, a few takeaways. I talked about it last week where Sirianni, his 5 core principles were connect, compete, accountability, football IQ, and fundamentals. And, yesterday in the press conference, the other word you heard, the key word, the buzzword that you heard throughout was trust. Trust. And, they asked Coach Sirianni about all these 4th down gambles. And he said, I trust in Jalen. I trust in the team. I trust in the offensive line. And I trust in Jalen. I trust in Jalen. I trust in Jalen. Those are exact words. And he even said to the media, did you guys hear what I said? I trust in Jalen. Because he's getting tired of the line of questioning, is Jalen Hurts a franchise quarterback? Guys, give it up. Quit it. At this point, if you don't think Jalen Hurts is a franchise signal caller, you're embarrassing yourself. Just stop it. Stop it right now. Stop it. So he went out of his way to say, I trust in Jalen. And he said, hey, he can get wiggle with it. Little Will Smith. He said, Jalen gets wiggle with it. And he was talking about how Jalen Hurts does take a lot of hits, but we trust him because he gets wiggle with it on those hits. He just knows how to avoid those hits. And he said something interesting. Our good Johnny Mack, actually, the last question of the presser, John McMullen got off. He said, you talked about trust. You trust Jalen. He said, where is that level of trust or that confidence level as opposed to a season ago? Very good question, Johnny Mack. And Sirianni had an interesting response for him. He said, that trust grows as the relationship grows. Obviously, over the course of time since last year, Jalen has built up that trust because Sirianni has seen it day in and day out. It's the consistency and the trust that allows Nick Sirianni to have that confidence in Jalen Hurts. And you can see that confidence exuberate through Jalen onto the playing field and throughout onto his teammates. It's a trickle-down effect from the top. And we talked about Howie Roseman being involved in some of the game plan meetings, whatever the case may be. One thing you can say, this front office and coaching staff, like a lot of successful teams around the league, they're connected at the hip. They communicate very well. The 49ers, who you saw last night, dismantle the Rams. John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, they're connected at the hip. They communicate very well. Right? And you're seeing that with Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni and down onto his quarterback and Jalen Hurts and Shane Steichen and so on and so forth. So it brings me to the Mike Tomlin clip that I talked about last week on last week's show. Mike Tomlin was a guest on the Ryan Clark podcast. I think he has a podcast with Brandon Marshall. And this quote, I can't get it out of my head. Mike Tomlin, how do you expect unique results without unique relationships? Think about it, guys. How do you expect unique results without unique relationships? It's not just about coming into work, punching the time clock, punching in, punching out, going home. These guys are hanging out outside the facility. These guys are putting in the extra work. 4 a.m., Jalen Hurts is in there. 8 p.m., he's leaving the facility. Carson Wentz ain't doing that. Just saying. And I got more on Hurts, but let me finish up with the Sirianni presser. We talked to Ed Kratz about the injury updates. He's going to have more later today. Sirianni did say he will have an update on Wednesday. Oh, today's Tuesday. I'm getting ahead of myself. Sirianni said we'll have an injury update on Wednesday. Everyone has a chance to play. So no serious season-ending, threatening type of injuries. But he said everybody has a chance to play. If I had to guess, the signing of Tyrese Robinson tells me Suamalu a little bit more banged up than we want. I think Opeta gets the start. Break glass in case of emergency, Cam Jurgens, but I think Opeta starts at guard if Suamalu can't go this week. Darius Slay is always going to try and play. And we saw his snap count limited through the first 3 games. I think he only played a handful of snaps this last game. We'll see. I think the coaching staff has a business decision to make on Darius Slay. Why rush him back if you're the only undefeated team? Maybe you make sure he gets right, get tight. Like Nick Sirianni talked, it's a 17-round heavyweight fight. You're only in round 5. I would rest Slay knowing that DeAndre Hopkins is out and the Cardinals really don't have a wideout threat that installs fear like a Nuke Hopkins. This is the week to rest Slay, in my opinion. Get it right, get it tight. McPherson did okay, especially if Avonte Maddox comes back. I'm absolutely resting Slay. Now, Maddox was a big loss, in my opinion. Josiah Scott played okay. The good outweighed the bad, but there was a lot of bad sprinkled in there. He got picked on. I think the Christian Kirk 44-yard catch was on Scott. He may have had a penalty or 2, but he bounced back. He persevered, right? Which was the theme on Sunday. So if Maddox is back, I'm resting Slay personally because nobody on Arizona's wide receiving AJ Green. Okay, Bradbury's got that covered all day. No problem there. So I think this is the week to rest Slay if you can. Hopefully Maddox is back. Suamalu, I think it doesn't look good if they sign Tyrese Robinson this week to the practice squad. That's a telling sign. And then we'll find out. Today's the rodeo day. Who are the Eagles bringing in for tryouts? Our guy Howard Balzer, by the way, covers that as well as anybody in the media. So we'll see. Are they bringing in kickers? Because Jake Elliott? We'll see. Andre Dillard is attacking his rehab, according to Coach Sirianni. He was non-committal to Elliott. He was non-committal to Dillard. I know a lot of you guys wanted him shipped out of town along with Jalen Reagor, but hey, it's looking good. The fact that they kept him is looking good, guys. I think Dillard could be an X factor. You know, you heard Ed say the Jordan Mailata injury could be more serious than we first thought. Dillard could be a saving grace, believe it or not. That's the luxury of the Eagles' offensive line. Suamalu goes out. We got Opeta, who started a playoff game. Oh, by the way, Cam Jurgens on the back burner can play all 3 of those interior offensive line positions. So they're going to be okay there. Mailata, if he misses multiple games, that could be concerning. And you hope that Dillard gets up to snuff quickly. Antonio Holmes saying Scott and McPherson did not do okay. I beg to differ. They didn't cost you the game. McPherson played almost the entire game. A lot of responsibility there. I wasn't feeling great about it from what I saw in the preseason, but he's held his own. Even when Slay was out the previous games, McPherson's did okay. I said okay. Didn't do great. Did okay. He's a backup. He's a backup for a reason. Josiah Scott, not so much. Not so much. And if Maddox and Slay miss this week's game, then you could see Chauncey Gardner-Johnson reside back to his slot nickelback corner role. Just saying, it's a possibility. Sirianni did praise the backups. So despite what you think, Antonio, Sirianni thought otherwise. He gave nothing but props and kudos to Scott, McPherson, all the backups. But, that might be a dilemma this week. You might not have Slay and Maddox. So what does that look like? That could look like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson moving back to the nickel, maybe. I don't know. Could be. All possibilities on deck until we get an update. So Dillard's attacking his rehab. We'll see if he gets activated this week. I talked about the fourth down gambles that Sirianni was asked about. He said, hey, the confidence leads to conviction. I trust Jalen. I have confidence in Jalen. I have confidence in the offensive line, and that leads to conviction. When it came to Opeta versus Jurgens, he did say Cam Jurgens is immersed behind Jason Kelsey. And that tells me more so than ever, we've talked about it in the past, but I think this really could be Jason Kelsey's final season. He's having too much fun on the podcast, by the way. What is it? New Heights with Travis Kelce, because they're from Cleveland Heights. They got the podcast New Heights. Hey, Kelsey's having too much fun. I'll tell you this right now. I'll go on the record. If the Eagles win the Super Bowl, Kelsey will ride off into the sunset with another legendary Super Bowl speech, and that'll be the end of Jason Kelsey's playing career. If the Eagles win the Super Bowl, there's no way in hell he's coming back. So I thought that was interesting. I thought that was a very smart move by the Eagles to kind of say, hey, Jurgens, you're on Kelsey mirroring 101. Like, follow him to the locker room, follow him to the cafeteria, follow him home. If you got it, you just pick this man's brain. And I'll tell you what, that's going to be a really smooth transition next year. If Kelsey does hang him up, that's going to be a really smooth transition, because I mentioned it over the summer on Mac and Mac when I evaluated interior guards or interior offensive linemen in the 2022 NFL draft. Cam Jurgens was the best pull guard that got down the line and into the second level that I saw in last year's draft. I think Cam Jurgens, the handoff from Kelsey to Jurgens, could be all pro to Pro Bowl. Like, I think Cam Jurgens is a Pro Bowl caliber type of player in the making. And another guy who fits the mantra, the gritty, the hard-nosed, underdog, Nebraska, Cornhusker tough, cornfield tough. Cam Jurgens is. And he's athletic. He's got that agility, man. He could slide down there. What is there? He can get wiggle with it. Cam Jurgens is another one who can get wiggle with it. Very cool, by the way, that the Arizona Cardinals coordinated a media session with the Eagles media contingent. You heard Ed Kratz, who was on at the top of the show, say he posted an article yesterday. He'll have another article on Zach Ertz later on in the week. Ric Serritella was asked about Zach Ertz and the reunion tour. Said he's a class act, hard worker, maniacal hard worker, and he's got nothing but respect for Zach Ertz. He did mention, while he wasn't here for it, he's seen the Super Bowl play against the Patriots on that big slant pattern that Ertz had in the Super Bowl against New England. And he said the influence that he had on Dallas Goedert is evident. And that's what the Howie Roseman front office is doing. We talked to Neil Stratton on Thursday about the front office executives and some of these guys who are going to be up for GM jobs or assistant GM jobs. And you see it with Ertz to Goedert. You're seeing it with Kelsey to Cam Jurgens. In a way, you're seeing it with Brandon Graham handing off to Josh Sweat. The depth, that's the luxury of this Eagles team. That's why they can go very far come the winter. So get used to that Arizona locker room because you could be visiting again in February. Make sure you get a lookout for those restaurants in downtown Phoenix because you might be spending 2 weeks out there. Sirianni is going to be very upset when he finds out there's no good Italian food out in Arizona. I can vouch for that. In fact, one of my fellow scout brethren, when he had a loss in the family, he lives out in Phoenix, Arizona. I try to find a nice Italian restaurant to, send him a smorgasbord Sunday meal like we do in the Serritella household. It took about 2 hours. It took an hour to find a spot. Then it took me another hour to find an Italian restaurant that actually delivers in Phoenix. They don't deliver out there in Phoenix, Arizona. Any listeners from Phoenix? What's up with you guys? None of the restaurants deliver. You got to go through Uber Eats. It's such a weird dynamic. But it took me about 2 hours to get my paisan of a nice Italian meal out in Phoenix. Sirianni is going to be very upset during that Super Bowl stay. He's going to be very upset to learn the Italian food ain't flowing in Arizona like it is in Philly. Finishing up the Sirianni press conference, he mentioned how happy he was that James Bradbury was a Philadelphia Eagle. We had Martin Frank on yesterday's show, and Tone, our producer behind the scenes, does a great job of keeping all of our shows archived. And, he made a good comment in the chat, in the private chat to me, like, yo, chat room, calm down. McPherson, Scott, they're backups. They're backups for a reason. Like, I know we got a lot of Batman capes floating around in Philly, but like Zach McPherson doesn't just go inside the phone booth and come out Darius Slay. So I agree with you, Tone. Like, yo, curve the expectations. Back on up. Give Zach McPherson some breathing room, okay? Anthony Perry in the chat room, bro, you got the quote of the year. I find myself quoting RIC a lot. That means he's one of the absolute favorites. I appreciate the love, Anthony. We're trying to break it down, real football talk here on the Football Playbook each and every day, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern time. So buckle up, smash the like button if you're on board with Anthony Perry. Peters to Mulata, Joshua said, another good example of grooming the next man up. The Eagles are doing it, man, and they're going to be projected $35 million under the cap. So that Jalen Hurts deal is going to get done. You talk about the cap increase, it's going to go up at least 20, maybe 25 million. The Eagles will be sitting pretty, 50 million under the cap. Go ahead and give that man Jalen Hurts $40 million a year. You'll still have money to maybe bring back a Miles Sanders and cast. Speaking of which, Sirianni gave a lot of props to Howie Roseman in the presser. Again, a 20-minute press conference. This was the longest one of the year that I saw. He said, hey, and you saw Sirianni get a little bit jubilated in his presser. He said, oh, he definitely watches JAKIB Sports. You could tell that. But he's like, yeah, I was, tuned into the media and, halfway through the offseason, it was like, hey, all you guys did was sign Hassan Reddick. All you did was sign Hassan Reddick. And he's like, hey, we would have been ecstatic if that's all we did. But then we picked up Kaiser White. We picked up James Bradberry. Said, oh, man, I'm so happy James Bradberry is an Eagle. And I was going to say, we had Martin Frank on yesterday who said he was at the locker where Slay was joking when Bradberry was being interviewed. Slay chimed into the interview. He was like, yo, what you need to be asking that man is how come the Giants let that man walk out the building? Well, when you're David Gettleman and you keep handing out bad contracts, it results in cap casualties. So one man's trash is another man's treasure. Philadelphia will thankfully take a James Bradberry. Thank you, David Gettleman. Thank you, New York Football Giants. So he gave props to Howie. He gave props to the backup guys. And Hassan Reddick, you're right. Darius Slay's the Joker. Hassan Reddick's Bane. I mean, Reddick cannot. We haven't talked enough about the hometown kid and what he brought to the table. Again, 70 years since the last time someone had 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, 2 sacks. Hassan Reddick. Eddie Kratz said it'll be announced tomorrow, the NFC Defensive Player of the Week. I fully expect it to be Hassan Reddick. So Slay, Brandon Graham, Hassan Reddick, 3 out of 4 ain't bad for your NFC Defensive Player of the Week. Who else could it be? Maybe Bosa. Bosa had a heck of a game last night. 2 more sacks for Bosa. I think he leads the league with 6. We'll get more into the Monday Night Football game from last night. I got some NFL news and notes. Oh, by the way, Jalen Hurts sat down with NFL.com with a one-on-one interview. I have a lot of takeaways from that. I'll talk about it after the break. Smash the like button. It's all brought to you by Ocean Casino Resorts. Get down to the gallery for the Eagles pre- and post game. And Tone is going to pay some bills. We'll come back. 1 hour of power down, another hour of power to go right after this.